curious minds and inquisitive souls, to our exploration into the beginning of it all. Welcome to our very first episode titled, The Book of Genesis. In the spirit of beginnings, I think it's only fitting to explore the concept of Genesis, not just the biblical account, but as a metaphor for the inception of great ideas, the dawn of creative endeavors, and the birth of innovative movements that have shaped our world. Genesis starts with a powerful statement. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It's a straightforward proclamation, but it prompts our first question. What does in the beginning really mean? Scholars have debated this for centuries. For some, it marks the start of time as we understand it, a moment when the divine sparked everything into existence. For others, it's a more poetic expression, capturing the concept of origins and beginnings without being tied to a specific moment in time. As we move through the text, we encounter the creation narrative, where in 6 days, light, sky, land, stars, and living creatures come into being, culminating with the creation of humans. This leads to an intriguing question. Are these days literal 24-hour periods, or do they signify something more abstract, perhaps even metaphorical? It's a question that ignites discussions between literal interpreters and those who see them as symbolic periods of a divine process that could span ages. In the beginning, there was an idea, much like the universe, which scientists believe started with a single, explosive event, the Big Bang. Everything we know and everything we do starts with a spark. That spark might be a question, a dream, a necessity, or even an accident. But from that tiny smoldering ember emerges something much larger than ourselves. Let's travel back in time, all the way back to the genesis of civilization. We encounter a garden, the Garden of Eden. Considered a paradise, an environment of perfect harmony. It's in this carefully crafted setting that we first meet Adam and Eve. The timeless tale of Adam and Eve, a story that has captured hearts and imaginations for centuries. It begins in the exquisite Garden of Eden, a paradise overflowing with beauty. Imagine a place with lush greenery, vibrant flowers, and rivers running crystal clear. Here, everything was in perfect harmony. In this enchanting garden, God created Adam, the first man, from the dust of the earth. He breathed life into him, and Adam became a living being. Adam was given the incredible task of caring for this beautiful garden. His days were filled with wonder as he named the animals and enjoyed the fruits of the land. Yet, despite the beauty surrounding him, there was a sense of something missing. Adam was alone. To address this, God decided to create a companion for Adam, something that would complete him. From Adam's rib, God fashioned Eve, the first woman. When Adam saw Eve, his heart sang. She was perfect in every way, a partner who could share in the joys of life. Together, they roamed the garden, experiencing love and companionship in this serene paradise. As they lived in Eden, God provided them with everything they could possibly need. There were fruits of every kind, and they were invited to eat freely from any tree, except for one, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. God warned them that if they ate from this tree, they would surely die. This command set the stage for what was to come, a test of their obedience and faith. As days turned into weeks, Eve found herself near the forbidden tree. There she encountered a cunning serpent. The serpent, an embodiment of temptation, engaged Eve in conversation. Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden? It asked. The serpent twisted God's words, planting seeds of doubt in Eve's mind. She replied that they could eat from any tree except for that one, and if they touched it, they would die. The serpent countered with a sly promise, claiming, "You will not surely die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Intrigued by the serpent's words, Eve felt a strong temptation. She took a closer look at the fruit. It appeared delightful, enticing her with the promise of wisdom. Eventually, she reached out, plucked the fruit, and took a bite. Adam, witnessing this, followed suit, and in that moment their eyes were opened. They realized their nakedness and felt shame for the first time. Instantly, they felt a surge of guilt and fear. They hid from God among the trees, trying to escape the reality of their actions. When God called out to them, asking why they were hiding, Adam confessed that they had eaten from the forbidden tree. God's heart was heavy, knowing that they had disobeyed. The consequences were grave. They were expelled from Eden, forced to face the world outside the garden's protective embrace. Life became more challenging for Adam and Eve. They dealt with pain, toil, and hardship, the very things they had been sheltered from in Eden. Yet even in their trials, there was hope. God promised them a future, one that would ultimately lead humanity back to Him. As the saga of Adam and Eve unfolds, it teaches us about the complexities of choices, the nature of temptation, and the love that pursues us despite our failures. Their story highlights the importance of free will, reminding us that while we may stray, redemption is always within reach. So whether viewed as a myth, a moral lesson, or a spiritual truth, the narrative of Adam and Eve resonates on many levels. It encourages reflection on our choices, the significance of companionship, and the journey of understanding good and evil in our lives. So what does their experience teach us about human nature and free will? Genesis presents the tree of the knowledge of good and evil as both a divine command to obey and a temptation to resist. It's this pivotal choice that introduces us to the complexities of moral responsibility and the consequences that follow. These ancient texts seem to suggest that with knowledge comes power, but also monumental consequence. This paradise, where everything was provided, raises the question, what was life truly like in Eden? Was it a place of pure bliss, or were there challenges even in this perfect world? Perhaps Eden was meant to represent a state of harmony with nature and the divine, a harmony that we, across generations, have yearned to recapture. Genesis isn't just about the origins of the world. It's also about the origins of complex human emotions and actions. The story of Cain and Abel, for example, a tale that has echoed through time, exploring the depths of human emotions, sibling rivalry, and the consequences of our actions. In the book of Genesis, we find Cain and Abel, the first two sons of Adam and Eve. Cain, the elder, was a farmer, tending to the fields, while Abel was a shepherd, caring for flocks of sheep. For a time, life was simple, with the brothers living side by side, each contributing to their family's needs in their own unique ways. As the harvest season approached, both brothers brought offerings to God. Cain presented the fruits of his labor from the soil, while Abel brought the best of his flock, selecting a prized lamb as his sacrifice. This is where the story takes a pivotal turn. God looked favorably upon Abel's offering, but rejected Cain's. Imagine the mix of emotions that must have surged through Cain. He had poured his heart into his crops, only to see his brother honored for a different kind of gift. Anger and jealousy consumed him, emotions that we can all understand even today. Instead of addressing his feelings or seeking understanding, Cain let his resentment fester, leading to a fateful decision. Cain spoke to Abel one day, and in the quiet of the fields, he lured his brother away. Underneath the vast sky, where the air was still and the world felt at peace, Cain ultimately unleashed his inner turmoil. He struck Abel down, committing the first murder in history. The act was a shocking reminder of how unchecked emotions can lead to devastating consequences. In the aftermath, God confronted Cain, asking, "Where is your brother Abel?" Cain, filled with guilt and denial, responded, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" This moment encapsulates the heart of the story. Cain's refusal to take responsibility marked a turning point for humanity, teaching us about accountability and compassionate stewardship towards one another. Let's take a moment to reflect on this powerful narrative. It opens the door to pondering the nature of sibling rivalry and jealousy. What can their story teach us about forgiveness and redemption? Although it's a tale of tragic consequences, it also reflects on the human capacity for both destruction and the longing for divine approval. The beginning of civilization was more than just a point in time. It was the starting point of a story that's still being written today, a continuous line drawn from the past to the present. So let's embark on this journey together and uncover the mysteries of Genesis. Have you ever wondered what Genesis, the first book of the Bible, truly conveys about the origins of the universe? It's a narrative that starts with a powerful phrase, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." But what does it mean for something to be created from nothing? Theologians and scientists alike have debated this ex nihilo concept, pondering over the divine power that could ignite the cosmos without pre-existing materials. It's a cosmic quandary that bridges faith and the laws of physics. inviting us to consider the unseeable force behind all creation. Moving through the days of creation, we encounter Abraham and Sarah, whose faith and journey form a cornerstone of Genesis. Abraham and Sarah, originally named Abram and Sarai, lived in Ur of the Chaldeans, ancient Mesopotamia. This region, known for its rich culture and vibrant civilization, was where their incredible journey began. Abram was a man of great faith, chosen by God to lead a people who would shape history. He was promised something extraordinary by God, the birth of a nation stemming from his own descendants. Despite the promise, there was a major hurdle. Sarah was barren, unable to conceive children. This must have weighed heavily on both their hearts. In a society that valued heirs, Sarah felt the strain of her inability to give Abram a child. As years passed, perhaps doubt began to creep into their hearts. Would they ever have the descendants that God had promised? One day Sarah, wanting to help fulfill God's promise, suggested a plan that would change the course of their lives. She offered her maidservant Hagar to Abram to bear a child on her behalf. This was a common practice in that era, but it wasn't without its challenges. Hagar became pregnant and bore a son named Ishmael. However, this decision led to tension and strife within their family. Sarah grew jealous and felt that she had brought this predicament upon herself. Imagine the emotional turmoil within Sarah. She had wanted to help fulfill God's promise, but now was caught in a web of regret and conflict. Meanwhile, God, in his divine wisdom, continued to reassure Abram of his covenant. 13 years passed after the birth of Ishmael, and God spoke to Abram again, declaring that he would indeed have a son with Sarah. This son would be named Isaac, meaning laughter, as both Abram and Sarah found the notion of having a child in their old age laughable yet delightful. Then came the day of the miraculous announcement. The angels visited Abraham, confirming that Sarah would conceive. Sarah overheard the news from inside her tent and began to laugh. At 90 years old, the idea of bearing a child seemed nothing short of impossible. But God responded with a gentle question, "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" Sarah's laughter soon turned to joy when, just as God had promised, she gave birth to Isaac. Their long wait had come to an end, and in that moment, the couple understood the depth of God's faithfulness. Isaac grew and became the center of their lives, a tangible reminder of God's promise fulfilled. As their journey unfolded, Abraham and Sarah faced many challenges together. They traveled to Canaan, endured famines, and faced the harsh realities of life. Yet through it all, they supported each other and held steadfast to their faith in God. Life took unexpected turns when God instructed Abraham to sacrifice his beloved son Isaac. This directive must have shattered both Abraham and Sarah's hearts, representing the ultimate test of faith. Yet Abraham obeyed, believing in God's goodness even in the most cryptic of commands. In the end, God provided a ram as a substitute for Isaac, affirming his provision and faithfulness. With Abraham, we face the question of faith and sacrifice. What does it mean to trust so deeply in a divine promise? And with Sarah, we ponder the complexity of hope, as she laughs at the prospect of childbirth in her old age, but later rejoices with her son Isaac. Their stories provide a wellspring of spiritual reflection. As we turn the pages and the narrative progresses, we find ourselves amidst a flood that engulfs the earth. In a world much different from ours, a man named Noah received a special message from the heavens. The message was clear: a great flood was coming, one unlike anything the world had seen before. This flood would cleanse the earth of its corruption and start anew. But next came a daunting task. Noah was to build an enormous ark to save 2 of every kind of animal. Noah wasn't just given a warning. He was granted a mission of immense responsibility. Thus, he began gathering materials and constructing the ark, a massive wooden vessel that would house his family and a representative of every living creature. Can you imagine the sight? Huge beams of gopher wood, pitch for ceiling, and a place designed to be their sanctuary in the midst of chaos. With each plank he nailed down and every beam he raised, Noah showed unwavering faith, even as the world around him mocked and doubted his endeavor. As the ark took shape, animals of all kinds began to arrive. Birds flapped their wings, lions roared, and the gentle bleats of sheep filled the air. 2 by 2, each species made its way to Noah's ark as if guided by an unseen force. It was a spectacle. The unity of every creature, great or small, reflected a divine plan that ensured the continuation of life after the flood. Finally, the day came when the skies darkened and rain began to pour. It started as a gentle patter, but soon swelled into a torrential downpour. With his family safely inside, Noah closed the ark's door, sealing them in with the animals. As the floodwaters rose, they floated upon the vast, endless ocean, a tiny speck of hope amidst the chaotic waves. Days turned into weeks. Inside the ark, Noah and his family cared for the animals, feeding them and ensuring they were safe. It took hard work and dedication to maintain harmony in such cramped quarters, but they persevered. They told stories, sang songs, and awaited the moment when the rain would stop and the sun would shine again. And then one day, the rain ceased. The waters began to recede, and the ark settled on the mountains of Ararat. Noah, filled with hope, wanted to see if the land was once again habitable. He sent out a raven who flew back and forth until it found no place to rest. Then he sent out a dove. The dove returned with an olive leaf in its beak, the symbol of peace and renewal. With that sign, Noah knew it was time to leave the ark. When the doors swung open, a new beginning awaited them. They stepped onto dry land, greeted by a beautiful, reimagined world, vibrant and full of promise. To celebrate their survival and express gratitude, Noah built an altar and offered sacrifices to the Creator. As a response to Noah's faith and dedication, a wonderful thing happened. God made a covenant with Noah and his descendants, promising never to flood the earth again and setting the rainbow in the sky as a reminder of that promise. This brings forward the question, how should we interpret the story of Noah and the ark? Is it a historical account, a symbolic representation of renewal and redemption, or perhaps it's meant as a dire warning to future generations about the importance of righteousness? The flood narrative poses questions about divine judgment and mercy, encouraging us to reflect on how we live and the legacy we're sculpting for those who will inherit the earth after us. Continuing our exploration, we come across the Tower of Babel, a fascinating tale from ancient times that resonates with themes of ambition, pride, and diversity. Let's take a journey back to a world united by one language and a singular purpose. In the early days of humanity, after the Great Flood had receded, people spoke the same language and shared a common vision. They were filled with ambition and creativity, driven by the hope of making a name for themselves. Instead of scattering across the earth, they gathered in a place called Shinar, a fertile valley, with a grand idea in their minds. Let us build ourselves a city, they proclaimed, with a towering structure that reaches the heavens. The inhabitants of this valley aimed to create a monumental tower, symbolizing their unity and strength. They believed that this tower would ensure they would not be scattered across the earth, allowing them to preserve their identity and legacy. As they set to work, the people of Shinar demonstrated incredible skill and innovation. They made bricks from clay and baked them thoroughly, creating strong materials to support their ambitious project. With each brick laid and every layer raised, the tower grew taller and more magnificent. As the construction progressed, their excitement became palpable. They envisioned a world where everyone spoke the same language, collaborated seamlessly, and could reach the heavens. However, as this grand ambition unfolded, it caught the attention of the Lord. Observing from above, he noticed how the people's unity had fostered a sense of pride and arrogance. This human endeavor was not just about building a tower, it was also an attempt to overshadow divine authority. The Lord decided to intervene, for he had a plan of his own. In an instant, the seamless language of the people began to fracture. Suddenly, words that once flowed as easily as water became tangled and confusing. "What's wrong?" one builder exclaimed in disbelief, as he couldn't comprehend the words of his neighbor. Panic set in as the builders struggled to communicate, leading to frustrations and chaos. Confusion spread like wildfire through the construction site. Some builders began speaking languages they had never heard before, while others could no longer understand the plans. The beautiful tower that stood as a symbol of unity became fractured, not only in its structure but also in the hearts and minds of the people. Their ambitious project came to a grinding halt, as everyone became lost in translation. This once unified community quickly dispersed, speaking languages they were unfamiliar with, unable to collaborate or connect as they once had. The dream of reaching the heavens turned into a lesson in humility. The unfinished tower was abandoned and the site became known as Babel, which literally means confusion. The divine intervention had reshaped the future of humanity, ensuring that people would speak different languages and scatter across the earth. This story reminds us that while unity can be powerful, it's essential to recognize and honor the diversity that exists within our world. Here, Genesis illustrates humanity's ambition to build a tower to the heavens, and how that leads to the scattering of people across the earth with different languages. What can we learn from this story about human unity and diversity? Perhaps it's asserting that while ambition is a powerful force, there is also strength and beauty in diversity, as we are encouraged to spread and flourish in different territories and cultures. Allow me to share with you one of the most captivating stories of all. A tale of dreams, triumph, and the unbreakable bonds of family. This is the story of Joseph, son of Jacob, a young man whose life was as colorful as the coat he wore. Joseph was the 11th son of Jacob, and he was dearly loved by his father. This love, however, sowed the seeds of jealousy and animosity among his brothers. As a teenager, Joseph had dreams that foretold a future where he would rise above his brothers, causing them to grow even more resentful. One day, while Joseph was sent to check on them as they tended to the flocks, his brothers seized the opportunity to rid themselves of the dreamer. They stripped Joseph of his multicolored tunic, the unmistakable emblem of his father's favoritism, and cast him into a pit with the dark intention of leaving him to an uncertain fate. As commerce caravans traversed their lands, the brothers sold Joseph into slavery to a band of Ishmaelite traders en route to Egypt, later deceiving their father into believing his beloved son had perished. Back in Egypt, Joseph found himself a slave in the house of Potiphar, the captain of Pharaoh's guard. But even in servitude, Joseph's integrity and capability shone bright. The Lord's favor was with him, and he soon became overseer of his master's house. Yet, not even Joseph could escape the pitfalls of life, as he was wrongfully accused and imprisoned over false charges from Potiphar's wife. However, it is often in our darkest moments that our brightest lights can shine. Even in jail, Joseph's talents did not go unnoticed. He was soon placed in charge of all the prisoners, and his uncanny ability to interpret dreams became well known. This skill paved the way for a life-changing event. Pharaoh, troubled by his own enigmatic dreams, heard of the Hebrew prisoner with a divine gift. Joseph was brought before the ruler of Egypt and interpreted Pharaoh's dreams, predicting 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of famine. Pharaoh was so impressed that he elevated Joseph from the dungeon to become second in command over all Egypt, tasking him with the responsibility of preparing the nation for the coming years of scarcity. Joseph's interpretations proved accurate, and Egypt thrived, storing vast quantities of grain during the plentiful years. When the famine struck, it reached as far as the land of Canaan, where Joseph's family resided. Desperate for food, Joseph's brothers traveled to Egypt, unaware that the brother they betrayed was now the man in charge of dispensing the aid they so desperately needed. In a series of encounters fraught with emotion and tests, Joseph revealed himself to his brothers, extending forgiveness rather than vengeance. The story of Joseph teaches us that in life, we may encounter many trials and tribulations, but it is our response to these challenges that defines us. Joseph chose forgiveness and wisdom over bitterness. He recognized that his journey with all its vicissitudes was part of a larger plan, not a plan of his own making, but one that had been divinely orchestrated. It is a story that resonates through ages, encouraging us to hold fast to the virtues of resilience, forgiveness, and faith. Within its ancient verses we find modern-day wisdom, a reminder that even in our lowest points, there can be a greater purpose, and that reconciliation is a powerful and beautiful culmination to strife. The connection between Genesis and modern scientific discovery raises yet another stimulating inquiry. Consider the advent of the Internet, a sprawling digital network that has become a cyberspace universe all its own. Born from the minds of computer scientists, the Internet was the answer to a simple need: sharing information across long distances quickly and efficiently. Little did those scientists know they were sparking a digital revolution, a Genesis moment that would redefine how we work, play, and connect with each other. Our current world is brimming with such Genesis moments. Startups that began in garages are now multinational corporations. Social movements that started with a single voice have galvanized global support. Each one began as a mere thought, a wish to change something, to create, or to disrupt. And from these nascent beginnings rose something new, transformative, and often unexpected. But Genesis isn't solely the realm of the past, it's happening right now, all around us. You might be considering starting something yourself, a business, a project, an artistic endeavor. Remember, the power of Genesis is not contained in the size of the initial step, but in the direction it takes once that step is made. Every story has its in the beginning, and every day offers a new chance for Genesis in our lives and communities. The question we must ask ourselves is, what will we begin? What will our legacy be, and how will we contribute to this incredible unfolding story? As we reach the conclusion of the book of Genesis, we're met with a tapestry of stories that have shaped our world. Genesis is more than just the beginning of the Bible. It's the foundation that allows us to understand our existence, our relationships, and our responsibilities. As we wrap up this exploration, we see an array of narratives, from creation to the Great Flood, and from the tales of the patriarchs to the story of Joseph. Each story carries profound insights and lessons that resonate across time and culture. It's a reminder of the complex interplay of joy and suffering, faith and doubt, community and solitude. The ending of Genesis, especially in the story of Joseph, brings forth themes of reconciliation, forgiveness, and divine purpose. Joseph, despite being wronged by his brothers and sold into slavery, rises to prominence in Egypt and ultimately reveals himself to his family. This powerful moment is not just about personal forgiveness, it's a broader commentary on redemption and the enduring power of love. Joseph's journey illustrates that even in our darkest moments, there can be a higher plan at work, guiding us toward healing and restoration. In the closing chapters, we also find the 12 tribes of Israel established, setting the stage for future struggles and triumphs. This lineage showcases the importance of family and legacy, but it also invites us to reflect on our own legacies. How do we want to be remembered? What values do we pass on to future generations? Throughout Genesis, God's presence is palpable. The covenantal relationship established with figures like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob takes center stage. It prompts us to engage with the idea of covenant in our own lives. How do we honor our commitments, and how do we treat those we love? The dialogue between God and humanity underlines a theme that echoes through Scripture: grace, mercy, and the possibility of change. Speaking of transformation, it's essential to consider the overarching theme of migration and journey within Genesis. The movement of people, whether escaping famine or seeking purpose, reflects our own journeys in life. The stories of Adam and Eve, Noah, and the patriarchs highlight the human experience of seeking a better place and the trials that come along the way. Genesis also encourages us to embrace our differences. The diversity found in the family of Jacob, with the sons representing various tribes, symbolizes the strength that comes from unity in diversity. Each individual, no matter how seemingly insignificant, plays a crucial role in the larger narrative. This is a powerful message for our times, urging us to recognize and celebrate the varied contributions of every individual in our communities. Now let's take a moment to connect with these themes on a deeper level. In our lives, we often face conflicts, choices, and moral dilemmas just as our biblical ancestors did. How do we navigate our relationships with those around us? How do we confront challenges with courage and faith? Genesis encourages reflection on these questions, inviting us to weave our own stories into the rich tapestry of life. In summary, the book of Genesis serves as a profound guide, leading us through questions of identity, purpose, and community. It reminds us that despite the complexities of life, we can find hope and direction. In closing, as we move beyond Genesis, let's carry its lessons with us. Embrace the journey, honor your relationships, and remember that in each of our stories there is a divine thread woven through, guiding us toward grace and love. Thank you for joining us on our first episode of Thoughts. Until next time, stay safe.